The smart lock made a soft whirring noise as it reset, just in time for Deborah Langston to get caught red-handed, standing inside my foyer in leopard print leggings and holding a stack of HOA brochures like they were subpoenas. "Community check-in," she chirped with the enthusiasm of a door-to-door vacuum salesman. I stood there, calm as ever, and tapped my phone. A loud ding sounded from the security system. "Cool," I said, barely suppressing a smirk. "You just triggered a felony alert. Police will be here in 6 minutes. Want coffee while you wait?" She didn't. Too bad, because I also called my lawyer. "My name is Darren Ellison, and I am a retired aerospace engineer turned home automation hobbyist. 6 months ago, I bought a sleek smart home at Juniper Vale Estates, a gated neighborhood advertised as having light HOA oversight. The realtor failed to mention that light oversight meant microscopic scrutiny of every blade of grass and doormat angle. When I moved in, I made one decision that would change everything. I declined to join the HOA entirely. My reasons were simple: privacy, peace, and not wanting to join a group that had a monthly shrub uniformity review. Deborah Langston, HOA president and self-declared director of neighborhood wholeness, did not like being ignored. Her war began over a Ring doorbell. She ended up in a civil courtroom. But let me back up and tell you how we got there. It started innocently enough. 3 days after moving in, I found my first violation notice taped to my front door with what appeared to be industrial-strength adhesive. Deborah had cited me for illuminated doorbell intimidation, claiming my smart doorbell's blue light violated the community's neutral ambience policy. The violation came with a 40-page attachment detailing the Juniper Vale Aesthetic Harmony Guidelines, which apparently classified any light brighter than a dying firefly as aggressive illumination. I called the HOA office to explain that I was not a member and therefore not subject to their rules. The secretary, a sweet elderly woman named Mrs. Patterson, whispered into the phone, "Oh honey, Deborah does not really care about membership status. She considers herself the sheriff of the entire neighborhood." When I asked to speak with Deborah directly, Mrs. Patterson's voice dropped even lower. "She is in a board meeting right now, reorganizing the flower color approval system." Again. 2 days later, I received my second citation for non-neutral mulch tone, because I had used brown mulch instead of the approved beige. The citation included a color chart with 17 different shades of beige, each with names like Whispered Wheat and Humble Oat. When I pointed out again that I was not actually a member of the HOA, Deborah responded by making wellness inspections of my property line. I would look out my window and see her crouched in my bushes with a measuring tape, once measuring my garden gnome's hat with a laser level to ensure it did not exceed the 3-inch decorative height limit. The situation became surreal when she started leaving improvement suggestions in my mailbox. These were not polite recommendations but detailed blueprints for how I should modify my home to better harmonize with the community vision. She wanted me to repaint my front door from navy blue to peaceful porridge, relocate my bird feeder 6 inches to the left, and replace my welcome mat with one that featured softer, more inclusive messaging. When I ignored these suggestions, she escalated to what she called intervention protocols. Things escalated when I installed a smart lock system integrated with facial recognition. The lock was a thing of beauty, brushed steel with a discrete camera that could recognize authorized faces from 15 feet away. I had programmed it to recognize my family, close friends, and delivery drivers. What I did not anticipate was that it would also automatically catalog uninvited visitors, creating a detailed database of every person who approached my door. Deborah discovered this feature during one of her property wellness checks, when the system announced in a pleasant female voice, "Unrecognized visitor detected. Please state your business or depart immediately." Deborah went ballistic. She claimed the lock violated community spirit and might scan souls without consent. She demanded I remove what she called the digital demon, and threatened to bring the matter before the county zoning board. When I explained that the lock was perfectly legal and that I still was not a member of her HOA, she began what I can only describe as a campaign of technological terrorism. She researched smart lock vulnerabilities online, printed articles about digital privacy invasion, and even consulted with her nephew, a community college computer science student, about hacking methodologies. The breaking point came when she discovered that my system had been automatically flagging her as a frequent suspicious visitor, and storing her image in a file labeled Potential Security Threat. She began leaving increasingly threatening notes under my door, including one that read, "Smart locks make dumb neighbors. I will enter." Another note, written in red ink, declared, "Your robot door cannot stop community justice. Resistance is futile." I kept every single note, carefully photographed and stored in a folder labeled Evidence of Crazy. What I did not expect was that she would actually follow through on her threat. The final straw came when she organized what she called a digital resistance meeting in the community center. According to Mrs. Patterson, who attended out of curiosity, Deborah had prepared a PowerPoint presentation titled The Smart Lock Menace: How Technology Destroys Neighborhood Trust. She had somehow obtained printouts of my lock's technical specifications and was using them to argue that my device was conducting unauthorized biometric surveillance on innocent community members. The meeting ended with Deborah announcing her intention to take direct action if I did not remove the surveillance apparatus within 48 hours. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon, I was at the grocery store when my phone buzzed with an alert: unauthorized facial entry attempt. HOA_Karen_453. My system had cataloged her face during her previous property line inspections. Seconds later, interior cameras caught Deborah inside my home, fumbling with pamphlets and trying to unplug my router. She was wearing those same leopard print leggings and a hot pink shirt that read, "Community First." I was 3 blocks away, standing in the cereal aisle, watching this unfold in real time on my phone. I did not rush. I let the system log everything: timestamp, entry footage, door tampering evidence. Then I called the cops. Then my lawyer. Then I retrieved my HOA-exempt property clause, tucked neatly in a fireproof drawer labeled "Use when stalked." Deborah was still rearranging my doormat when officers arrived 20 minutes later. She attempted what I can only describe as a citizen's justification, yelling, "I am the gatekeeper of community order," while trying to hand them her bylaws binder. The police were not impressed. They arrested her for breaking and entering, trespassing, and attempted tampering with a security system. As they led her away in handcuffs, she shouted, "This lock is a lie. Real neighbors do not hide behind technology." The HOA board, watching from across the street, panicked and issued a formal apology to me. I stood there, stone-faced, and simply said, "Oh, I am not done." The court case was a thing of beauty. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Jennifer Hayes who specialized in property law, presented the evidence with surgical precision. First came the footage showing Deborah's face clearly in the system's recognition database, complete with timestamps from her previous unauthorized visits. Then came the recorded audio of her shouting, "This lock is a lie," while attempting to disable my security system with what appeared to be a screwdriver and a rubber mallet. The prosecution outlined Deborah's pattern of harassment, including her threatening notes, her admission to police that she had every right to enter for community safety, and testimony from 3 neighbors who described her increasingly erratic behavior. Deborah's defense attorney, a tired-looking public defender, attempted to argue that she was acting in good faith as an HOA official. This backfired spectacularly when Jennifer produced my property deed clearly showing that I had purchased the home with an explicit HOA exemption clause. The lawyer then tried to claim that Deborah was experiencing stress-related mental health issues, which only made things worse when Jennifer presented evidence of Deborah's calculated planning, including her research into lock vulnerabilities and her organized community meetings. The most damaging evidence came from my home's interior cameras. The footage showed Deborah not just entering my home, but systematically searching through my belongings. She had opened my kitchen drawers, rifled through my mail, and even attempted to access my home computer. In one particularly incriminating clip, she could be seen photographing my personal documents with her phone while muttering, "Community oversight requires thorough investigation." When the prosecutor asked what possible HOA business could justify photographing someone's tax returns, Deborah's face turned bright red. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, was clearly unimpressed with Deborah's antics. During her testimony, Deborah attempted to justify her actions by claiming she was protecting property values and maintaining community standards. When asked specifically about breaking into my home, she replied, "Sometimes leadership requires bold action." The judge's eyebrows shot up so high they nearly disappeared into her hairline. "Ma'am," the judge said slowly, "breaking into someone's home is not leadership. It is burglary." The verdict was swift and decisive. The judge found Deborah guilty on all counts: breaking and entering, trespassing, attempted tampering with a security system, and invasion of privacy. The damages were substantial: $18,000 in damages for property intrusion, $9,000 in emotional distress, $5,000 in legal fees, and mandatory community service cleaning solar panels at my tech club for 200 hours. Additionally, the HOA formally barred her from any leadership position indefinitely, and she was required to attend anger management classes for 6 months. But the real kicker came when the judge addressed the HOA board members who had attended the hearing. "Let me be clear," she said sternly. "Your organization bears some responsibility for enabling this behavior." Mrs. Langston's actions were not those of a rogue individual, but the result of a system that allowed her to harass a non-member without consequences. The judge ordered the entire HOA to undergo legal training on property rights and harassment prevention, at their own expense. When the judge announced the total $32,000 judgment plus community service, Deborah's face went completely white. Her hands started shaking, and she gripped the defendant's table so hard her knuckles turned white. "But I was protecting the community," she stammered, her voice breaking into a high-pitched whine. "I was just trying to maintain our property values. How is that illegal?" The judge simply shook her head and said, "Ma'am, breaking into someone's home is not community service. It is a felony." As the bailiff explained the payment terms and community service requirements, Deborah collapsed back into her chair, staring at her hands in complete shock, finally understanding that her reign of HOA terror had cost her everything.